California, with its abundant sun, still adheres to the rule of night and day. What might sunlight, without favoring any one being's gaze, illuminate? What might the sun be? Perhaps it is accomplishment, illuminating humanity. Hartman writes in Wayward Lives' Beautiful Experiments that waywardness is, quote, an improvisation with the terms of social existence, when the terms have already been dictated, when there is little room to breathe, when you have been sentenced to a life of servitude, when the house of bondage looms in whatever direction you move, when one's designated sex renders one vulnerable to subordination. How does one exercise power? One might align oneself with those that have a shared goal. Meanwhile, some might pursue opportunity as solely an individual with ambition. Opportunity will manifest for some, providing the illusion of opportunity for others. But some didn't stop at seizing opportunity for themselves, at achieving success. They subverted norms, and in doing so, provided opportunity to others to exist as, Hartman writes, quote, an ongoing exploration of what might be. Texas Guinan exerted this power in The Gun Woman as a multifaceted human with a multifaceted existence. Perhaps it is for this reason that her brilliant performance in The Gun Woman has not gained a dominant part of the male-driven narrative of female performance. Let's take a look at the power of her gaze in the film The Gun Woman. Hallett writes in her book, Go West, Young Woman, that in 1800, performance employed almost entirely men. I wonder if their low social standing afforded women an opportunity to, by 1900, arguably overtake the performing arts. In doing so, they revitalized and engaged women. Hallett writes that, quote, the stage offered the best chance for both self-support and social mobility for women with the fewest resources, end quote. Soon a cultural power shift occurred at the hands of what men know to be a resourceful, intelligent, creative, insightful, and thus threatening other. Man's want was suddenly at stake because of emancipation via entrance into the performing arts. and enthused spectatorship. A narrative had to be constructed. In comes the likes of Munsterberg, writing about women that are unable to distinguish between, quote, the superficial and the profound, end quote. Is this why, when looking to the past, we look to Pauline instead of Texas Guinan's Tigress? But can both be claimed as part of a varied and beautiful sex? Let's take a look at Pauline's experience as a resourceful woman, pursuing want, being brave, asking for help when needed, accepting love when ready. It is a selective reading, but isn't that always how one reads history? Here, I'd like to pose the question: what does Pauline's story become to you if there is no antagonist and there is no marriage? Of course, in the reality of Pauline's portrayal, she is safe because her wants are trumped by an inevitable marriage that ends her story. Making her once insignificant and even frivolous. We never share in her gaze. We are never directed by her want. We are never asked to truly understand it. Consequently, her story is preserved. I do not believe that it is bad to preserve her story. It is a part of performance history. As performers, women were seeking opportunity, and that meant appealing to different women with different wants. It means that not all women want emancipation, and that life is not built around a clear-cut us versus them distinguished by the sexes. There are nuances to want, and female performers understood this. They found what of themselves appealed to what audiences. Sometimes they performed against their wants. Sometimes their character wants reflected their own. And these realities were not mutually exclusive. They existed in the realm of opportunity. What is it, if not the embodiment of the want that comes from post-pubescence? Schneider writes in her book American Women in the Progressive Era of the very thing that child Pickford can never experience: life after puberty. She can thus be safely pursued, and so she was. Schneider also writes that doctors commonly believed that during menstruation, quote, the flow of blood diverted energy from the brain, rendering women idiotic, end quote. Unlike the new woman embodied by Clara Bow, Pickford before her could be looked at and enjoyed without fear of her adult gaze, without fear of menstruation, pregnancy, and menopause, all of which Schneider writes were labeled as diseases. What's more, the new woman that generated so much anxiety surrounding shifting sexual norms was not a threat, at least not on screen. Studler writes in O Doll Divine of Pickford's lack of sexual subjectivity. Unlike Bow, she cannot want for sex, which Studler points out does not mean that, like Bow, she is not wanted as a sexual object. Ultimately, her characters lack power in a world of shifting power dynamics that left men and women alike feeling threatened by possibility. Her characters are safe in their absence of autonomy and choice. Further still, they impart female virtue onto youth in a manner appealing to those longing for a loving, sensitive child that reflects the best of themselves. Let's take a moment to look at Waltham, rather than at Bow's Betty Lou. He is of privilege. He is assumed to be weak to Betty Lou's sexual and mental power, which is, of course, his excuse to kiss her without asking if he may. He is equally weak to the mores of his time and place. When he thinks that Betty Lou is an unwed mother, he attempts to abandon her. Weak again to his lust for her, he attempts to buy her gifts in exchange for hidden sex. The undesirable of society, in his mind, should be put out of sight, though privately enjoyed. He is the very kind of man in power that would visit a Texas Guinan character in a brothel, while publicly denouncing prostitution. He is the kind of man that might have invaded the film industry to reap what others, including so many women, had sowed during the 10s and 20s. He is undeserving of Betty Lou, but he is also an opportunity for Betty Lou. Again, we come to opportunity, the very thing that drove so many women to the theater and then to Hollywood. And in going back to opportunity, we revisit the threats that come with opportunity. With the Me Too movement came the realization that not all threats to women were imagined. Even if not quite exactly like the action melodrama of Pauline's Unwed Perils, or the sensational faux realism of films like Traffic in Souls, there were the beatings, rapes, and murders of vulnerable peoples. They harmed like a fire and swept through multiple populations. Are Pauline's Perils, then, a metaphor for the real-life dangers that face women? Might women sometimes need an ally? Would they ever come in the shape of a man on a white horse, and is it bad to dream such a dream? I know I've dreamt of a man on a white horse, and I know I'm not bad for it. Neither are the women that dreamed. How about, for a moment, we escape by dreaming together, with Pauline living out the dream. Guinan went west of Texas to become a star, and so she was. According to the Women Film Pioneers Project, she was a star far outside the confines of the, quote, Eastern lady or the Western dance hall prostitute roles that would delimit women in mature examples of the genre, end quote. So much so that she was able to play, in the first film she produced, quote, male and female twins. When the male twin is killed, she avenges his murder while wearing his clothes, end quote. Here, in The Gun Woman, Guinan plays out confidence and intimidation, lust and vulnerability, new love, deceitfulness, cunning, longing, despair, and forlorn personal growth. The love she finds that I showcase at the beginning of this video essay is about to betray her. After swindling barflies and scraping together for a new life that will begin upon the two being reunited, her man uses the money to buy his own saloon. Needing someone to manage the women, he turns to the very woman he betrayed, assuming that her newfound poverty and love for him means she has limited choices. Let's watch. California. Hilary A. Hallett writes in Go West, Young Women, quoting historian Kevin Starr, that California was advertised as an Eden for white Christian farmers looking to escape the, quote, ignorant, hopelessly un-American type of foreigner who infests eastern cities. End quote. A mass migration occurred to California of those looking for luxurious agricultural life. With them came people searching for a different opportunity in Hollywood. These two types of migrants, suddenly foreigners themselves, would be at odds. Both would long to claim the land as theirs, and their counterparts as a new brand of un-American. Their conflict informed what we now know as early American cinema. With the mass migration comes fortune for some and squalor for others. Some of this fortune was enjoyed by women, and still they would be forced into an interplay with the norms of their time and place. Some read this as a subordinate existence, and yet there is another reading of subordination that prevents any one group's experience from being simply miserable. For instance, Hartman writes in Wayward Lives' Beautiful Experiments of the ghetto, quote, an urban commons where the poor are simple, improvise the forms of life, experiment with freedom, and refuse the menial existence scripted for them. Some like to think that women are born of men. And it is true that sometimes men provide a platform for women to illuminate the human experience. Look at Beau, Pickford before her, Pearl White before her, and of course, the luminous Texas Guinan. Guinan, the actress, the producer, the storyteller turned Prohibition-era club owner / outlaw, and eventually the traveling showwoman. I encourage whoever sees this to seek out her work and story, as I have only just begun doing. There will be the confusion that occurs with celebrity between her person and her persona, but regardless, there will be the wayward experiences that encourage you and others to live. As we are in our relationship to the sun, we are in our relationship to woman's accomplishments. But unlike in our relationship to the sun, might we allow the light of woman's accomplishments to shine on us for as long as we want. Regardless, as long as we live, the accomplishments exist.